Ladies and gentlemen, it's very nice to see all of you here, and I'm really pleased to see how eceee has developed over the years. And I'm actually one of the fossils when it comes to eceee, since I was one of the founders of it. So as we heard the other night, all fossils are not in the fuels. I'm also a board member, and today I'm the plenary session leader of local actions, looking for action, turn to your local heroes. And why have we dedicated a whole plenary session for local actions? Well, from my understanding, we can see a current trend that there is a lot more going on the local arenas, and we need to focus on this much more. And the reason for this is, of course, simple. At least to me, it's very simple. So what delivers energy efficiency? Actions and measures do. And who carry out these measures? Well, people do. And people are acting on the local market. So that's why we need to look more into the local arenas. And this calls for new roles, or rather a renaissance for the local leaderships. And I don't know how your countries have it, but in Sweden we have two major driving forces. One is the EU directives, and the other one is local actions. And I call it the hamburger effect. So we push from below and from the top at the same time, and the national legislation are in the middle, like, well, something that needs to be redefined, I would say. It doesn't mean that national policy isn't important or that other stakeholders' activities are not important, but it is on the local level that the actions happen. And while some member states are focusing on finding the loopholes, many cities and municipalities are leading the way now towards a future-proofing of their cities, making them more sustainable, more attractive, and more competitive. And this is necessary since the general recognition of the necessity for energy efficiency is probably higher than ever, but still we are lacking the sense of urgency from many actors. And that's a quite unfortunate decoupling from what I see. And to realize the existing energy efficiency potential, we need to develop new partnerships and new working models. We need to empower the citizens, we need to mobilize, and we need to stop underestimating the importance of the small contributions. And today we will be having a plenary session here where we are focusing on the four questions of what can the local sector do when national governments fail to show leadership? Why is it important for the local sector to lead the way? How do we establish cooperation among all local stakeholders? And how can municipalities get the private sector to cooperate on a long-term sustainability goals? We will listen to four local heroes in 3 different presentations here. And we will start off with Sustainable Energy at the Heart of the Community by Paul Isbell from Bristol City Council. Then we will hear Thibault Hermans and Nolwenn Lecuyer from the Brussels Capital Region talk about Brussels Energy Service Recipe, Learning in the Move. And we will then end up with community-led energy projects breaking the barriers by Seamus Hoyne from Limerick Institute of Technology. So this is what the 3 speaks we are going to hear, and we will then end up with a discussion, a panel debate, where you can put questions to them. So please welcome the speakers up to the scene, and we will give the floor to Paul Isbell first.
A fantastic opportunity to be invited today, and I really do appreciate the invite. Bristol has done some things a bit differently to everybody else, and hopefully we will have time to go through some of those. Okay, let's just get this around the right way. Okay, so for those of you who don't know where Bristol is, down there on the left-hand side, you have the Bristol Channel, which is next to the coast, so a bit of the border of Bristol has coast to it. I wanted to also say that you can see that its location to London, and I was asked this afternoon, well, why do you think these things have happened in Bristol and not, you know, predominantly. And I think what happened is the kind of like the green movement moved out of London and it got to Bristol and just kind of like stayed there. So we have the cycling, Sustrans, very, very strong there. We have the Soil Association, who are also based in Bristol. So lots of things that are green and good, kind of like are in the city. And when it came to the population, they want to see change because those kind of people have gravitated there, and that's why the policies probably are there. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. Maybe open for discussion later. Okay, so for a long time now, we've had this green capital push, and that says there that to help make Bristol a low carbon city with a high quality of life. That is the key vision statement. And we get people to sign this pledge. And it's been going a long time, and we have actually entered the Green Capital competition. Just missed it a few times, so at the moment it's just out there. I think we're going to hear on the 14th of June whether we've won it. And actually we're in the race with Brussels, which is interesting that we're both here tonight. So, so just a quick run through. Now we're talking about here the carbon emissions of the City Council's estate, not the whole city, okay? So 75% come from buildings, 18% from street lighting, bit of transport fleet, business travel, and non-building are things like bridges and things like that. So a massive amount of carbon coming from our building estate, and that's my job. So this is now breaking down the types of buildings. We've got the corporate buildings, leisure buildings, schools, 42% is absolutely massive, and a bit of social housing. So this is not including all the energy that would be used by all the houses in the area. Okay, so this is just concentrating on what is my kind of like responsibility for the city. And as you can see, 42% from the schools, and this is about 500, 600 buildings. So the energy management unit existed from about 1996. Avon Council disappeared and Bristol became a unitary authority, and I took over the job then. And we're very unique in the UK that we're a self-funded unit. So I'll explain a little bit more about that if I have time. But really, the key driver is innovation, and we've always tried to do things in a different way, and we're doing everything, as you can see from that diagram. Well, moving on. So these are some of the things we've achieved. We have the first UK local authority wind turbine development. I know that's not unique to Europe, but in the UK it's pretty unique. And we've kind of like been developing that, and it has actually probably taken about 10, 12 years because of its position on the Bristol Channel, because of environmental issues, bird monitoring, all those kind of things, and the possibility that we have to have some creative solution because there was an airport nearby, which is now gone. So we have one of the UK's largest biomass clusters, biomass projects, more biomass boilers being implemented. We have one of the sort of local fuel depots, and we've developed PV. We're looking at ground-based PV, okay, and small wind, small hydro. One of the main things there we've actually pioneered is making sure that all our meters are automatically read. So that's the gas, the electricity, and the oil, and the biomass, and the PV. So basically trying to get, in the UK's base, half-hour data for every single meter. And a lot of other people don't have that, and having that means that we can then move things to the next level. So because of that, we are part of this 3-year European project called Smart Spaces. I probably won't have a lot of time to go into that, but if you remember that name, look out for that project because it's very, very significant, a big, big project that's good. We also have a rotating energy efficiency scheme. All basic stuff, basic energy efficiency, but probably we have now recycled £1 million twice, and I've got a slide to highlight what we've done on that. And we were very heavily involved in the Energy Cities display campaign, and a lot of work in developing energy awareness on that. So that's a quick run through. If there's time, you'll get some detail. So the wind turbine, we had public consultation exercise going on. We had our own website. And in Bristol, it was totally different reaction. In most of the UK, people don't want wind turbines. In Bristol, they said, why are you only doing 2? You should be doing 10. Typical council, you know, not doing the right thing. So it's kind of like a different reaction. We had newspaper that went round to every household. We had sort of stuff on the web so that people could give their views. And all in all, we had only about 1 or less than 1% of people who were against it, which is absolutely phenomenal. So this project is actually now being built. Okay, so it's not there yet, but it's being built, and they should be turning in November. So 2 fantastic achievement, really. Moving on to biomass. Now, basically, this is a story of starting very small with 1 boiler and the wood fuel. And in the early days, people were saying, what? You want to heat a building with wood? And we'd say to them, well, look, in Austria, they're doing 70% of their heatings probably from wood. But we had to get through those barriers of using wood as a heating source. So now we've got policies in place for new schools. It has to be wood. We've got our new museum is wood. And gradually that cluster is getting bigger and bigger. So that's another success. The PV, in the UK, we had feed-in tariffs scenario where the price suddenly went down. We managed to get over £1.1 million worth of PV installed. And there's some kids that are really excited about it there. So, the thing about the feed-in tariff, and I think it extends throughout the whole of Europe, is it started off an industry that then got a kick in the teeth. And I think in some places it's still kind of like just about recovering. But we're pressing ahead because we have policies in Bristol that on any new build, 20% of the energy for that building has to come from renewables. So even though potentially it's not cost effective, we're still having to have legislation to make sure that's a local law. So this is the Bristol City Council website. This is our page. I just put that up there just so you can see we have got one. And there's that little booklet there that you can download PDF if anyone's interested. We are actually in the process of revising that. More stuff. So I want to run through now 7 keys that I think are great for local authorities. I know probably, could you just say, anyone here is from a local authority or anything like that, a sort of a user? No, you're, so could you just tell me, you kind of like mainly research universities? Yes? Research people? No? Okay, who's in the audience? Help me out. Give me another topic. Government, okay. NGOs, okay, all right. Wow. Okay, well, these keys may be useful for other people to put into practice in other local authority situations or government situations even. Okay, an energy policy. Number 1, how many people have an energy policy but they don't actually even really aim to do anything about achieving it? Now that's the difference with what we're trying to do. We're actually trying to put a plan in place to achieve our policy. We have an energy team, and we're self-funded. I'll explain a bit more of that in a minute. We have strong cross-party support. So in the UK, and especially in Bristol, you have 1/3 of the councillors elected every year. So you've got constant change. And one of our keys has been to ensure that we have good communication with all the different people, so that when we just sort of like say we were doing the wind turbine, we just started up on that policy, and then a whole new load of councillors would come along and they could say, oh no, we don't want to do that anymore, so that we can actually keep long-term view, which is quite difficult when you have constant change of personnel. High quality data. There's nothing more sort of weird for people when the numbers keep changing. So we've tried to get all this metering stuff in so that we can have consistent data and it follows on year after year. Funding is another issue. A lot of people say, oh, well, I can't do anything because there's no money. There is money. You just have to go and get it. And renewable energy availability, we did a whole report on what we could do in our city. And I know a lot of other cities have done that. It's not, none of this is particularly unique. It's just putting all these points together. And then awareness, awareness raising is so important. So let's go to the number one. Basically, where do you want to go? What do you want to achieve? How much carbon are you going to aim to save? These questions are often, people just put in their nice brochures, okay, well, we're going to save 40% or whatever, but they don't actually have any plan on how they're going to achieve it. And what I'll show you in a minute how we are hoping to do that. So we've got a 40% reduction target by 2020, and very, very, steep target, and we've actually on the way. I'll show you. So, is there a light on here, guys? No. Okay. So what? On the top there, that arrow, it says 10, 11, 5, 5, 3, 3, 3. So you can see we were above the target that year, and this is our where we should be getting to 2020. So we have cross-party support, absolutely essential. I mean, I've been there over 17 years. And when you have changes of management, changes of councillors, complete frustration. So very important. Now, this is kind of like the machine that enables Bristol Energy Management Unit to do what it does. So we start off with investment, with the whole goal of saving energy, carbon, and money. But it's what we do with that money that is the most important thing. Most people and most authorities take that money, goes to the bottom line, and they see it as a saving. What we've done is we've used that money to fund our unit, but then we've also reinvested. And that is the simplest, that arrow there is the most simplest thing. And most people don't have that arrow in there. What have I done? Help. And then we've got other incomes. We have about 10 other income streams. So EU projects, we sell our services, we get a percentage off the bills we pay, those kind of things. And we also have external clients that we work with. So all of those incomes are topping up that pot so that we can carry on reinvesting and reinvesting and reinvesting. And there's always a great pressure when people are looking for savings. They say, oh, we could take that. And I've had to kind of like defend it a numbers of times. One of the, some of the advantages down of this, of having this model. So, no duplication of effort. What I mean by that is in a lot of local authorities you have the environment unit, you have the procurement unit, you have the treasurer, you have, let's say, audit even. They all have their own databases of the same information and they're all different. So you get confusion, really. So what we've done in Bristol is we've said, right, we'll have one database of everything. And then if people, like the environment guys, want that energy information, they come to us and we give it to them. So we're avoiding all that double working, double handling and inconsistency. We also, in the UK, have what's called the carbon reduction commitment. And that is effectively, it started off as carbon trading, it's now effectively a tax. So we have to put in every year our carbon accounts. They have to be accurate, because if they're not, we'll get fines, and having all that data in one place really, really paid off because it meant we were ready for this. We're able to kind of like outwork this corporate vision in the projects, and green bling. Bling is a bit of a Bristol word. It's kind of like the fact that people like having photographs of, let's say, PV on a roof, but it may not actually be the best thing, but they like to have that photograph. And so we don't want to do too many things that actually are not achieving the goal of carbon reduction. And then we keep an eye on the cost per tonne of carbon saved so that we can liaise over different projects, which are the best ones to do. So there are different ways of funding this team. We can top slice it off the energy budget. Some people do that. You can base it on a cost per kilowatt, which is very, very time consuming. We used to do it that way. Now we base it on a percentage of the bill. So different departments, we charge slightly different figures based on how easy or difficult it is to collect. And so we are about 9% on average. So we do the whole thing. So we procure it, we pay the bills, we get a percentage of that, and that comes in to fund our unit. Then we use that money, the over recovery, to invest in reduction. So you could say, well, aren't you on a self-fulfilling, getting smaller and smaller, you won't have any staff. But on the other hand, we also have things like the feed-in tariffs, which give us income, renewable heat incentive, which gives us income, doing energy certificates gives us income. So on the one side, you could say, right, well, income's diminishing, and on another side, those renewable projects are giving us income. It's a sort of a changing business model. So at the moment, we have a team of 10. We do this whole thing. I've already gone over that, but I've said of that. Yeah, so we collect about, well, it's more like 800,000, 750,000, 800,000 from all these different clients. And let's say 50% of that is for our salaries and overheads. So that we have that other, let's say 400,000, which we can use to invest. And the key thing with investment like this is we've got money for feasibility studies. Most other energy managers I know, if they want to do a simple little feasibility that might cost £5,000, they cannot get that money because they've got no access to it. Whereas with this model, you've always got money to do feasibilities, and then you can apply for finance to do the projects once you've proven it will work. And then, yeah, I just said that. Right, okay, energy procurement. We do all the EU compliant tendering, bill payment, 10.5 million, and 2,100 metered points. So we have all the billing associated with all of that. And by keeping it all down into a small unit, we were able to do it very, very efficiently. Electronic payments, electronic checking, very, very cost-effective way of doing it. And we use a system called Systems Link, and all our data gets put into one thing. So the projects, so we do all the different types of projects, energy efficiency, renewable, EU projects. Right, next. So this is just a slide, map curve, just to show you the range of energy efficiency works that we've done. This is from the SALEX fund, which our carbon trust in the UK initiated this. We were one of the first 18 municipalities they let us borrow effectively £400,000. We put in 500. Subsequently, there's been another 100. So it's £1 million fund, which we just keep recycling and recycling, and we get a small income off that. And we aim to save 800 tonnes of carbon a year through this scheme. So we have in the UK, we've got the DEC legislation. Buildings over 100,000, we have to do a certificate every year. The new one bit that came in is every 10 years, like probably most of the rest of Europe, but it's quite onerous having to do a certificate every year. And getting that, having all those meters in place means that we have that data every year when we need it. The carbon reduction commitment I've already mentioned. It is currently £12 a tonne, and it's going to increase to 16. And eventually, the cost to Bristol will be about £1 million. So on top of our sort of £10 million bill, we've got another million of tax, which is quite a lot, you'd probably agree. And then we do performance indicators. So I mentioned about data. Without this data, we couldn't do all of these things. I think data quality is really, really important. One of the problems with the number 9 there is the fact of using all this data, because a lot of it is just sitting in a sort of data cemetery, not being used, and look at that project. So what we're saying is that all our buildings throughout the whole city, we're going to use that data, and we're going to look at it so that we can analyse where the waste is and really crack down on that waste. So we've got 517 buildings, 2,100 metre points, 146 million kilowatt hours, £10 million, 12 billion euros, 55,000 tonnes of carbon, and that's the bill that was in that year before they raised it. And this is where we're looking at that money for the saving in smart spaces. Let's say lights left on, PCs left on, appliances, bad heating control, poor management. All these things that, I mean, we've been looking at all these things in terms of energy efficiency for a very, very long time. The problem is getting people motivated enough to actually do something about it. And what we've come up with is really, really brilliant on smart spaces. So what I want to do is just very quickly, this is a slide that builds up. And if I press the first one, you probably don't even notice the yellow PV. That is the effect that it's having. So massive amount of work, but not a lot of gain. Again, some medium wind turbines and a bit of hydropower. But it isn't until we put the biomass plan in there that we're starting to get there. The SALEX, which is the energy efficiency, the thing that is good old energy efficiency, is helping us get to the target. Council housing, that is insulation and basic work and controls on that. The central council housing. The purple, the sort of pink one there is the smart spaces. That's what we estimate is what is being wasted by all those lights left on, heating on when there's nobody there, heating on at the school over half term when there's nobody there, those kind of things. And we want to really screw all that down. And then the street lighting. So as you can see, by 2020, we think that we will get there. But then the next problem is what happens after that. And this could be a good debating point later on. We've got LED lighting coming along. That's going to get us some more savings. But how are we going to fill that gap? That is a challenge to all of us. So quickly, Systems Link. This is a quick snapshot of the web portal. And you can see that is the actual display certificate, not a mock-up of one. So our system shows the actual one, comparison of usage. And the profile report over there, the next slide is a blow-up of one. And you can see that you've got areas where equipment and lighting's been left on. At weekends, the whole weekend there it was left on at the lunchtime. And this report is for the caretakers, for the bursars, and it's totally visual, okay? No numbers. Well, there are some numbers on the bottom there, but it's designed for people who don't like numbers. And we're finding it so, so useful because the school kids can look at that and they can go to Mrs. Jones, the teacher, and they can say, hey, Mrs. Jones, you left your computer on last night. And they've got the evidence and they can see what's going on. And we've got user groups going on in different parts of the organisation. So this is part of the Smart Spaces project, and we're developing it, but it's so far there's another year to go on the project, so it's really proven very, very effective. I want to skip all this, but basically this is trying to show all the different things we're doing. And the main point of it is it's all going on all at the same time. So constant phone calls of, you know, you're doing a bit of PV here and phoning up energy supply here, and it is quite chaotic. But innovation is the key, and I think I'm being told I've got to finish. Yes? Okay, so I'll leave you at your leisure to read the slides when you get them, but I'm just going to finish off with the slide that I can't get to, but anyway. Yeah, there we go. So basically this is down the bottom there. When you get these slides, you can click on that YouTube link and you can find out all about it. But basically, it's a little piece of cardboard round a finger, and the kids just absolutely love it. They go round turning everything off, and actually they go around pretend turning things off, which is even more fantastic. So thank you very much for listening. Sorry if I've gone over a little bit.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this introduction. We would like to thank Mr. Borg for inviting us in such a short time to present the 9 years of actions in Brussels. And Nolwenn, my colleagues, and I will try to present this with this Frenchy accent that we have. Let's move on.
Let's go. Yes.
Okay.
So I want to present you the Brussels context, and I want you to have the next slide, please. To have you in mind that Brussels is a high-density city and region with more than 1 million people and 160 square kilometers. We have a very huge old building stock. It's the same like Bristol. We have 75. Oh yes, it's better like this, isn't it? 75% of energy consumption by buildings, and we have also a very low renewable energy potential. In 2001, we had an European study who told us we were the worst student in Europe about insulation, because our buildings have such a bad insulation that it was the same as buildings in Greece and Portugal. But you know, no chance for us that Brussels climate, it's not as good as in Greece and Portugal.
But thanks to the complexity of the Belgian politics, we have a large regional competencies, including environmental, energy, mobility, urbanism, and housing. So this allows us to set an ambitious policy of reducing by 30% the greenhouse gas emission by 2025.
So let's begin with the path. We began in 2004. Before, there were no energy strategy, but thanks to elections, we had a new minister, and so a new willing in policy, and with two main objectives. It was to be ambitious and set the objective as high as possible, and also to convince with examples at high scales. This was the beginning of the strategy, and now it's this, which it's not so charming, but we want to explain you the different parts in details now.
And this is a more simple result after this action, is the reduction of energy consumption per inhabitants, so it is minus 80%, and what we can see is the yellow curves is the population which is increasing during all these years, so it is quite a good sign for us, quite a good results. And now let's move on the action.
So let's go. So We stimulated the demand at the beginning, and this with 3 actions. It was initiative to promote examples, and the actions were voluntary. We had incentives and technical support, and so we began with an energy challenge for households action on behavior. We began with to implement energy grants, and we had also the first voluntary call for Plage, which is a local action plans to promote energy management in public buildings at large scale. And we began with municipalities, 7 from the 19 in Brussels.
Other actions were set in place in 2007 by the government. The first one is the BATEX, which means exemplary buildings. It's a program to promote demonstration projects in sustainable buildings with quality control and technical incentives, financial incentives and technical supports. In 2009, there were once again elections, and the Green Minister was re-elected, and we take that opportunities to involve the public authorities to engage themselves in constructing all their new buildings in an exemplary way. So they have to show to lead the market and to show the examples.
Yes, and recently this year we have just opened 6 energy houses for citizens. This is an action we have with local structures. So they are existing, but we train them to give some advices in the energy field. So to do some quick scan in houses, to advisor for refurbishments, and give other advices. We have also a service for professional. So this service is now a couple of years existing, and it gives also advices and all answer with expert for all questions about sustainable buildings. And the last one?
The last one is the green loan, which will help the low-income households to invest in the households, and it is also available for renters, because in Brussels we have a big proportion of renters, and it is an issue. And the building that you can see on the slides is our new offices for the Brussels Environmental Agency. It is called the Toaster, and it will be one of the more than 200 passive house buildings in Brussels.
So it's not the cheese, huh? It's the second one.
No, it's not the cheese.
So we spoke about demand. So Thibaut, what did we do to improve supply?
So yeah, we have to stimulate companies to respond to the stimulation of the demand we did with the action that you've seen. And the first stimulation is doing the green bees. That's an environmental incubator to help businesses that have green businesses, so to guide in terms of logistic and financial supports. A second action is the cluster eco-build, which is a structure to cluster and to form the partnership between eco-construction sectors. The third one is the Alliance Environment and Employment. This is a big part of the stimulation of companies. It's a multi-sectorial pact between public authorities, companies, social partners, and those involved in the sectors.
Well, now something is still missing,
Yeah.
and who makes the match?
To match these two parts, and this is done by improving know-how and knowledge, because we are stimulating sustainable buildings throughout energy. And as you may know, we do not design or build an inefficient building as the same as the oldest one. So we have to adapt the technical framework, and we are offering technical advices, technical guidance and support. But also we have to train those who are designing, constructing, and so we are offering nearly 2,000 hours per year of training, but we do not train the people by ourselves. Of course, we give to the private sectors the information in a way that they can appropriate the training program and then give them to the students, unemployed public, or architects and so on. So we train the trainers, in fact.
Yes, another initiative led by Brussels and very closely with partners and the 2 other Belgian regions, and also the professional concerned by this subject, it's all the construction field, is this Belgian Sustainable Building Quality Labeling called Referentiel B. This label gives the sector a way to clearly benchmark their effects in sustainable building, and it is designed to be BREEAM compatible.
But all these actions are not for free, and it costs a lot of money, and it needs a lot of people to handle all these actions. And you can see some numbers of the evolution of employees and budget for these actions. So we've been from 5 people to more than 100 in 9 years, and the budget has not followed as quick. But we've come from 5 million to 60 million euros for the global energy budget. And you can see the proportion of several programs, BATEX or Plage, during their periods.
So now we have also to confirm this strategy.
And that has to be done with the adaptation of the legal framework, because we think that we are stimulating companies, we are stimulating stakeholders to involve themselves in our actions, and after the success of these first actions, we have to secure their position, and it is be done by 3 actions.
Yes, so the voluntary action we had at the beginning, we want to get them mandatory. So it's a case for Plage, which is getting obligatory recently. For the passive concept 2015, Thibault will say a word. Public authorities engagement. And we have also a regional framework, it's a code. And all this have to fit to the evolution of EU ambitions.
Yeah, I would like to give a word about the negotiation process about this passive house concept, which will be mandatory for all new buildings built after the 1st January 2015 in Brussels, so including private and public buildings for houses, offices, and schools. And of course, it is a big challenge, and often when you make you fix big ambitions, you have cons that came. So we negotiated an agreement with all the Belgian building sectors. So we invited Federation of Constructors, engineers, architects, promoters to adapt the passive house concept to the economical and technical context of the urban region of Brussels. And now it is voted, and the sectors is following this evolution.
A few words about the Cobra. So it's a code, Brussels Code for Air, Climate and Energy. So it merges several environmental regulation and transposes directives. The nice thing is that we have a single legislation with a single vision, but there are different subjects, not only energy, it's also transport, mobility, air quality.
Another way to secure our position is to validate this action by externals. So we give a high visibility through our exhibition, books. I don't know if we have there, but if you pay attention to the presentation, you may win one of these tomorrow with a quiz in the graffiti. We won last year the eceee, the Sustainable Energy Week Award with our Brussels Nearly Zero Energy Building Policy. We are in the contest for the Green Capital of Europe 2015.
Bristol.
And we are searching, sharing experiences, good, less good, and analysis of our action to move forward and better and better. So we are searching partners for doing that.
Yes, so those are the next steps. We were very quick, so in 9 years, can you please?
Sorry.
So in 9 years, we did a lot of things, but it's just still the beginning, so we have still work to do. And so we want to continue to sustain the market to the targets of sustainable building. We want to monitor the action we began, but everything it's not done, so it's still in action. Keep quality control and continue to upgrade the professional skills and find alternative financing schemes.
No, it's time to conclude. I think so. And what I would like you to keep in mind during this presentation is not the numbers of our actions or the numbers of our budget, but the fact that all these actions are done with the ground, the stakeholder, with people that are doing things, and so I don't think that we are the local heroes.
Yeah.
Local heroes are people who are doing things. We, as a local authority, we organize and coordinate things, but we do not act properly.
Yes.
So, some keywords for our conclusion.
Be ambitious.
Do not fear to try some things.
Yes, be proactive, so go to the different stakeholders and to put them together.
You have to act exemplary, so to show the way.
Yes, do what you want the others to do. Organize, coordinate.
Like we said.
Yes.
And show the quality check, that is the monitoring phase that we are setting place in now.
And last point?
Offer support, technical support, financial support, and of course open new ways in doing things, and don't have here about the other manners to do things.
And so you have noticed that energy is not the only entrance. The entrance and the final target is to have sustainable buildings.
And a sustainable city.
And
at the
city,
end.
sure. And now we have just a spicy surprise, 3 minutes, it's possible, thank you. Thibaut, can you say a few words?
I will say a few words. This is a short film done by private stakeholder who are communicating on the passive house concept, and I think this is a good example on how the private sector appropriates the action that we are doing. And this film explains the passive house concept, but in other manners than engineers do.
So enjoy, I hope. Thank you.
Hi, Andrew Warren, Association Conservation and Energy. First of all, a statement. That was a brilliant film. What's it like translated into Flemish, though?
It is.
But I've got 2 serious questions, I fear, which is rotten at this stage. Your loans for low-income households, how do you handle those, and how much are they subsidised, and which I assume they are if they're aimed at low-income households? The other one in practice was, I remember a couple of years or so ago in the European Parliament, questions were asked about the European Commission buildings which they occupy in the Brussels region. They occupy a great number of rented buildings there. Often these are quite old buildings. And the question was, why was there no energy certificate put up in these buildings? And the answer that came back from the Commission was because the Brussels region hasn't decided what the labels should look like. Is that still true?
No. No, so for the second question, it is not true now. We have a certificate for all public buildings, and I do not know where is the one of the European Commission, but we have the designing of this certificate. And for the first question, what I can say about the budget, about the energy budget, is that 50% of this budget come from the regional budget, and other 50% come from tax on consumers. What's the interest rate? No, it's another. It's zero. Yeah.
I forgot to mention what the rules are for question. Just 1 minute for each question. So, and please state your name as you did, Andrew. Now we have the last presentation for tonight, and it's community-led energy projects breaking the barriers by Seamus Hoyne from Limerick Institute of Technology. Welcome up.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So I'm conscious of two things. You've probably seen about 12 or 13 different PowerPoint presentations today. So there's debt by PowerPoint and fake facts and figures. And also I'm the person standing between you and your nice French food and a bottle of wine, probably. So I'll try to be as interesting and animated as possible to keep you awake. And I have the difficulty of following that film, which is also not so easy. So thanks very much for that. We talked about heroes. I suppose I'm trying to present maybe the voices of some of the people from Ireland who, like Thibaut said, are the real heroes who implement the actions and take the initiative and move things forward. And a lot of my work over the last 20 years has been really a facilitator, a coordinator, an accessor of money to help them do those things. So I wanted to take you through kind of some stories from those people. So it's very much picture orientated, but coming back to some of the questions that we talked about. Why does the local areas have to take action? And I'm talking in terms of my projects, when we talk about community, is a real bottom-up community. So it's not led by local authorities or municipalities. It's led by people, homeowners, communities of interest, and trying to give you, I suppose, what are their motivating factors from my dealings with them. So I'm not a social scientist, I'm an engineer who has, I suppose, learned that technology is not the answer or the problem. It's getting people to invest in those particular technologies that work is part of the problems. So I suppose bear in mind those questions that were at the start of this plenary, like why do we have to take action when it's not happening at a local level? Why is it important for local lighthouse projects to happen? And how do we get cooperation across the stakeholders at that local level? So for community level projects, I suppose just some keywords in terms of barriers. Why at a local level would you have motivation to get involved in a long-term energy efficiency project or a renewable energy project? They have the same problems as the local authority that Paul had in getting good information, good data, having the right awareness. There are technical capacity issues, there are financial capacity issues, there are policy issues. So all of those same problems and barriers exist at a community level that exist at an organization level or at a public sector level. So some of the examples I'm going to give try to give you how some communities have overcome those issues. I suppose the next slide, before I show it, I should give you back a little bit of history of where I started in the energy business. In 1998, I was given the job to set up a local energy agency in Tipperary. Tipperary is in kind of the Midlands of Ireland. I'm not going to sing the song, it's a long way to Tipperary. If I had €1 for every time I've been asked to sing it at a European event, I could have given up this consultancy business a long time ago. But as part of setting up that agency, we got funding from Europe, and we had a mentor energy agency, which was in Austria. And I met a man called Gerhard Ulz. And I went to visit him, and he told me lots of things about how to manage an energy agency, but for 3 days. But in the first hour, he said, remember this sentence. Now, we had a couple of schnapps at the end of the day, so he said, you need to find the crazy people and put some of them on your board, and you need to find the crazy people out in the communities that want to go and do things and innovate and push and break down those barriers. And I remember that ever since I've met that man. And really it is, you know, crazy in inverted commas, like how do you find those people that are going to go beyond the norm and push things and make policymakers change and react to what they're doing. So here's some stories about crazy people. So I was involved for the last 5 years managing a large demonstration project in Ireland funded by the Concerto programme, and part of that project was the development of an eco-village, which was sustainable in all its components, looking at sustainable agriculture, so growing their own food, sustainable building, growing enterprises, local transport, and bear in mind that this project started in the context of the economic boom and madness that was happening in Ireland, where we were building houses everywhere for nobody because we didn't have enough people to occupy them. So these people were going completely against that norm. And they came to me in my role in the Energy Agency and in the Limerick Institute of Technology to say, we want to work with you to try to make this happen. So they developed a site. They've built, at this stage, 70 very low energy homes. They've installed the first residential district heating system in Ireland. They have sustainable drainage. They have smart technologies for all their communications. They have community buildings. They have a community farm. So all of the food that's consumed in the eco-village comes within 25 kilometres, more or less. And they have an enterprise centre with smart businesses starting up using advanced technologies. And this started in a meeting in a community hall in 1999 with a group of people of interest that wanted to push against the tide. And I suppose in terms of linking with the local authority and the policy side, what they required innovation of the local authority, because what they were going to do was not catered for in the local planning legislation and in the national legislation. So the local planner had to create a new designation for a sustainable community. And so that innovation that came from the bottom up was matched by the innovation from the local authority. And it addressed one of the policy issues that they were facing. So they knew how to build energy efficient buildings. They could get expertise for district heating. But without this policy issue being addressed, they couldn't have gone anywhere. And now they have a sustainable community. This is low energy hostel, so you can go and live and stay and learn in this community. So they want to not just live there themselves in an enclosed community, but actually to bring people in and let them experience what it is to be part of a sustainable community. They've used traditional materials in some of the buildings that haven't been used in Ireland for a long number of years. So this is cob construction. And they do a lot of training for professionals and construction workers in terms of sustainable building. The next area is Temple Derry, and this is the group that came to me in 1999 also, and they had done a community development plan, and at the core of what they were looking at was our community is dying. People are getting older, young people are leaving, and we have no jobs. So we have a community development plan. We think we need social housing because we have people living alone, elderly people living alone. And we think this energy thing might be interesting, but we don't know what to do. So after a long process of dialogue, they wanted to build passive house, a very low energy social housing, but complicated story, they couldn't get funding for it, so they said, we'll do another energy project, we'll do a wind project, because that's going to be fast. We can create a wind project in a couple of years, and we'll use the profits from that to reinvest in energy efficiency projects. So that was in 2000 that we made that decision, and that was just finished last year. I had a lot more hair, and it was not as grey before I got involved in this process. They had a very difficult time, but I think these again are crazy people. A lot of people could, and private developers have walked away from the issues that they encountered. But they stuck with it because they saw the benefit for the community in sticking with it. So this community, it's the first community-owned wind farm in Ireland, and the policy structure completely disadvantages community-owned wind in Ireland. It's very different to other parts of Europe. So a group in this community have made a €6.5 million investment, and the profits now will be reinvested through a community development company in a whole range of energy efficiency projects in this area. And the first thing that we did was to get 4 people in that community to do a renewable energy training program. So instead of dependent on outside consultants, they had internal capacity to move it forward. So it's trying to push that, build technical capacity at a local level, be it in communities or at local authority level. And the local authority was really supportive of this project because it had that community bonus. And they were very innovative in how they had to manage the finance of the energy of the wind turbine. So there will be a substantial return into this community over the next 20 years because of those crazy people's initiative. So lighthouses generally attract attention. So another area in Templederry or in Tipperary said, we want what Templederry has and we want a turbine. And I said, no, I'm not doing another 12 years. But then they said, well, we have loads of forestry, can we do district heating? And I said, no, like you're in a very small rural area. So then they said, well, maybe we could do something on energy. So they started to think about what they could do. And again, what we did was we trained people in the community to measure themselves. So they were able to meet with people and homeowners. And the starting point for the conversation about energy efficiency in this community was not about how much do you use, show me your energy bills, what insulation you have in your walls. The first starting point was, how would you like to improve your home? Are you comfortable? Do you live in one part of the house? So they started with the social questions, the personal questions. Anybody that saw my talk earlier on, they drank lots of tea. We drink a lot of tea as well as Guinness in Ireland. So that's a starting point. And then they managed to secure a lot of funding, upgrade 50 houses, and now are going forward to upgrade another 200 houses in this rural community. Creating investment in the local cooperative community, so the jobs are all local and driven by another local company. So their focus was very much on creating this local capacity and building it up. So the consultants and the energy agencies can step away and they have the capacity to move it on. And they're working with our National Energy Agency now. They've been a pilot for a better energy community funding scheme where national funds are now trying to be transferred down to capable community groups. So they managed through their co-op to overcome financial barriers, because one of the challenges was that they could get grant aid at a national level, but they had to incur all the cost before they got the support. So they had to do some creative management with their co-op in terms of investment to be able to make that happen. Quickly on this, I suppose I tried to add in maybe one or two references to ground it in real academic evidence. This is from a colleague, Dr. Vincent Carricker, who has spent the last 10 years of his life working on an ecological footprint project in a town in Tipperary. And his whole ethos is that we have to change what we do as individuals, and that can be built up into a collective. So he really much focused on an ecological footprint. So broad looking at energy, waste, transport, everything that we did in their daily lives. And he has done an amazing job in stimulating activity across schools, community groups. He used every single community activity he could in the area to get engagement. So it wasn't this green clique of weirdos in the corner. It became part of everyday life. They've reduced their overall emissions by nearly 30% in a 4-year period, and they have just got approval through a carbon trading company to start trading their carbon credits. And it will be the first of its kind in Ireland. And there's a lot more information about what they've done and kind of the low carbon future. So these are even pushing beyond some of the things that have been done in the eco-village. They're looking at a very much a holistic approach. And that was based on just knowledge, information, and data. And using that information to help people make investments and to change the way they were living. I suppose some other heroes. I think this red one is the button. This is actually Vincent here, but he's working with this lady here, Mary, from a village in Emily, and she is nuts. Complete psycho environmental head case. But she got her whole town to participate in this project called Energy Neighbourhoods, funded by a European programme. And she literally went door to door, convincing, cajoling, making people get involved in this project to look at their energy consumption. And they've won a prize, a trip to Brussels, which in my mind, who keeps having to go to Brussels, is not such a great prize, but it will be great for them. So like she drove this whole community by herself, and now there's a real collective engagement in the whole area of energy efficiency. The person on the left here is Paul Kennedy. He took over the running of the Energy Agency from me 2 years ago, and really he won an award. So a bit like in Brussels, looking for promotion of what you're doing, Paul won an award as being the green leader, a local green leader. So really showing by what he's doing and driving local authority energy efficiency to be one of the best in Ireland. And these two logos here, the one on the right is from our National Energy Agency, Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. They started last year, I suppose, identifying the need to not just look at funding programs that work at organizational level, be it public or private, but try to get down to the bottom ground. So they have this new funding scheme called Better Energy Communities, trying to provide support at that local level to build up capacity. And spinning out of all of this activity in Tipperary now, we now have businesses self-organising into a network to maximise the amount of income that can come into the county for sustainable activities. So we now have wood stove manufacturers setting up businesses in the county. We have wind turbine suppliers looking at getting involved in the network. So it becomes gives it a life of itself. So I think some of the questions and answers for community-led energy projects and how they can get over the barriers that they face is getting the communities to ask the right questions of themselves. You know, what do they really need? I was at a talk earlier today in terms of the Basque roadmap for energy retrofitting, and the driver has become access for people with older people to their buildings, and energy is added on to that requirement. So that's the core driver. So what is the core driver? We've seen in Templederry it was about looking at maintaining their community. It wasn't just about wind energy is a means to maintaining their community. So what really do they need, and can energy efficiency and renewable energy be a part of that? And often the innovation is in the way things are done, and I suppose that was the lesson from Drumbain. They wanted to look at district heating and advanced technologies, but the way they went about actually engaging with the community and getting the finance was the innovation, not the technology. I've been involved with the private sector for many years, and it's very, at a community level, get the private sector in as quickly as possible. It's very important. And I suppose community supports, in many ways communities don't need financial subsidies, they need supports that build up capacity within their communities, and then they can get the job done. Final slide. These are not my children wouldn't stand still for this long. These are two kids that live in the eco-village. So their reality is sustainable. They walk to school, their parents live in the community, their food comes within more or less 30 kilometers of where they live. All their energy is supplied from renewable energy. So their reality is very different to some of our realities. And I suppose working at all levels, we need to try and convert our realities to their reality as much as possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And if you're looking for crazy people, you're at the right place.
I have a question. Yes, sorry, Lieven van Stralen from Fedesco Knowledge Center. I have a question for our colleagues from Brussels. You mentioned the 2015 passive building policy for public buildings. On the other hand, we have also in Belgium, of course, the Energy Efficiency Directive transposition, obliging central governments to renovate 3% of their buildings. And I was wondering, how do those coincide? Because if you have, of course, the federal government has lots of buildings in Brussels. Of course, I think also most of the Brussels central governmental buildings are, of course, in Brussels. Some of them also of the Flemish government are in Brussels. They have to renovate, if I am well, according to EPBD standards for these 3%. But then if you renovate thoroughly the building shell, you also have to be passive. So my question is, finally, what do those central governments have to do for their 3% renovate? What is the standard up to which they have to renovate? Thank you.
Yes, okay. Thank you for the question. Now, so as I said, the passive house concept is just for all new buildings, and as you said, a building which is refurbished with more than 75% of its envelope is considered as a new building. But for the refurbishment of the public buildings, the levels of requirement is not set until today. It is not defined, and but it is sure that the passive house concept will trend, will pull the requirements as high as possible. But I cannot answer precisely in detail to this question because the requirements are not defined.
Marion Osterkorn. Thank you very much for these very interesting 3 presentations. I really appreciated these stories. My question is, all 3 of you mentioned somehow under the line that you had some European funding for some projects available. So my question is the way how the European finance for the community purposes is designed and available, is this sufficient for you, or would you have some additional remarks on this?
Okay, getting funding from Europe is a difficult process. It requires, particular resources, expertise, and generates a lot of paper for everybody. So at a community level, I would absolutely discourage community-led groups getting involved in European projects. But there are local energy agencies, local authorities, municipalities who have the resources and the capability to get involved in European projects. It is very challenging. Our approach to funding of projects is to look locally, nationally, and then European, not as the last resource, but always look locally first to try and fund those resources, because that is an added additional benefit that we're recycling funding within the community. If we can get funding from a European level, it is very beneficial, but it's not an easy process for an individual or a small organization to get involved in, and even I'm sure Paul would say at a large municipality level, it's challenging.
Yeah, I've had the benefit of 4 different projects, and first 2 were in effect consultant-led. So those consultants had the concept and they came to various people throughout Europe. I think in effect that is trying to generate income from the consultancy. The third one was from Energy Cities, and that was about the EPD. And I actually think that was a very, very significant project. It was all about the display campaign, and what could have come out of that could have been a common label for everybody. Because at the moment we've got this nonsense of every country, sometimes different parts of a country have got their own system, which seems like when we have to have the same colours for our electricity wires, why can't we have the same kind of design of label? It just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, so that was a really good project, and out of that we learned so much, and being joined to other partners in Europe, I think that just breaks down barriers, and it's really, really good. So we have to, I mean, to be honest, Bristol has to thank Energy Cities for asking us to get involved. The next one, which is this Smart Spaces project, which is going on, it's kind of like we were just so ripe that we had all our data. They wanted us to come in because we would add a new dimension of a municipality with loads of buildings, whereas most of the other partners in this project, they're looking at, you know, a few buildings. We had massive buildings, and I think that's come through because people knew about Bristol and they wanted us to join in again. So it's kind of like the benefit of projects from my perspective is that it's helped us to do things that we wanted to do in a better way than we could ever conceive possible. I may have been lucky. I did try doing a concerto. We were 8th, and the amount of work that we did to become 8th and fail was a real disaster. So I've been there on that side too, and you have to, as a local authority, and a lot of them aren't geared up for this, you have to allocate funds to do those bids, because they have to be done very well, because you're scored. So if you're not going to put in quality time to do a good bid, you might as well not bother. And this is really what you're saying, isn't it? But so the lady's asking, what more can we do? And I think perhaps someone needs to have a little look at the intelligent energy projects, because we must be redoing projects that we've already done, and it may be that we need to look at working in communities to make it easier, because I feel they are the future, decentralized energy and those kind of things, and there needs to be some easier ways to get hold of money.
Yes, so in the Environmental Agency in Brussels, and in the Direction Energy, we have very few European foundings. It's just the Environmental Employment Alliance, which is in a European program. So, but we are now looking for getting in, but we know not so many partners. It's a reason we are here. It's to know more people, because we began to try a project in the last year in FP7, and we noticed that nobody wanted to pilot the project. And so for the first time and first experience, we were piloting this candidature to a huge European program. And so, but we are interested to get in, because we worked in the project without looking what was passing around, and also during this session we were like really interested in the studies about analyzing politics in European countries. So we want to be experimented from researcher to give us inputs from how we do it in Brussels.
There's several actors in the Brussels region are benefiting of European funding, and they use our project as a motor in their own European project, and I think it's a good sign.
I just want to make one point. Paul mentioned Intelligent Energy for Europe projects. I suppose I would have a concern, maybe come directly back to your answer. In next year, the Intelligent Energy Programme, it has funded very much the software, the behaviour, the market barriers changes, and it is looking like that's going to be absorbed into Horizon 2020 and potentially get lost within this huge, ginormous R&D program. And for me, looking at those market failure funding programs, I have a deep concern about that. We're going to lose that potential funding capability to address those issues and focus purely on the pure research and the technology development, when there's lots of other softer issues that need to be addressed, and we need funding to overcome those issues.
Olivier Paul from Austria. So I have a question to Bristol. So you were presenting some very successful activities in your field, actually the public buildings, so the buildings and facilities that are really directly owned by the city. Could you say also some words on other activities that go beyond these buildings? So on the private sector, on the are such activities also in place in Bristol, and is it another department which take care of that? Or?
Well, actually, I mean, there is so much going on. So you got the angle for our own estate in that presentation, but we do have funding for an Eleanor project. Do you understand about Eleanor? Yeah. So in that project, there are a number of streams, one of which is increasing the level of PV. That is throughout the whole estate of Bristol, basically. So private housing, public sector buildings, that. We're also looking at district heating. So there is not very much district heating in Bristol at all. So what we're looking at is the Eleanor Fund is all about feasibility money to make things happen, and there's a requirement that the money that is given has a leverage effect of 25 times. So we have to do a project value of around about 70 million of the amount of money that we've been given. We're also looking in the UK, we have the Green Deal, and there's a lot of money coming in to the domestic sector for upgrading of very, very difficult to insulate buildings. So this is going on as well. So you would have needed another half an hour on all of that, but there's loads going on. Yeah.
So thank you all for these inspiring presentations and for the discussion with the audience. And I think that we have all learned a lot, that we need to be a bit crazy. We need to be persistent, as we heard. And for a long time I've been told that, well, energy efficiency isn't so sexy. But tonight we learned that at least at local level, energy efficiency is hot. Thank you for tonight.